two things, God and the Cats.
Welcome back, everyone. We missed you. It's been a long bye week, to say the least, especially after that loss against Hawaii. But we're back. Sam Houston Sports Talk. Colin Neal, Luke Scott, as always, right beside me on the computer screen on y'all's right. So, Luke, just kind of how's it been, man? I've been thinking quite a bit about this team over the bye week, over the last week and a half at this point, and leading up to Texas. I mean, it's definitely a different kind of game, that's for sure. But I'm just hoping that at the end of the day, the one main key I wanted going into the bye week is that it's a get right week. Everyone just gets back on the same page, and also getting healthier. We'll get to players being healthy and whatnot later, but that honestly, I think that bye week could not have come at a better time. And then you have another bye week after Texas, so this team could be pretty well rested heading into towards Conference USA. I mean, and of course, it depends on how healthy they get out of Texas.
We're going to need to be rested because we're going 0-4, but it'll be all right. I think having the bye going into Texas will help quite a bit. Like you say, with just the rest and dealing with the shoulder issue that Watson had, and guys getting banged up on the back end, it'll help. Hopefully, where there's not too much rust, early in the game, going up against Texas, DKR is going to be, a great venue to go check out. I'm sure the team's excited to go play there, but the whole week kind of watching football, a lot of really good football actually this weekend. A lot of great games, but I was missing the Bearkats, Colin. We were missing seeing Sam Houston play.
Yeah, it's I don't care if they're undefeated, they're winless. I don't care. I need my Bearcat fix every single weekend. Well, this is a very interesting pod, to say the least, because we're going to have two guests. I was able to get a couple of guests from Texas's side of things. I got Eric Henry. He's the beat writer for Texas Longhorn football and basketball for 24/7 Sports. And I was able to get CJ Vogel of On Texas Football. But first, Luke, before we continue on, if you haven't already, be sure you hit that subscribe button today and like this video. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. Links are in the description. Again, the audio form of this podcast is available on Spotify, so be sure you go check it out. The link is also in the description. Luke, let's start off first. Let's rapid fire this. Let's get going. But now remember, the biggest storyline out of Hawaii was the QB situation. Mabry Matoyer started. Hunter Watson was deemed unavailable before the game, and then Matoyer got hit in the head, obvious concussion. He got taken out of the game. Landon Locke came in, and then Hunter Watson got suited up sometime in the second half. And here was Longo after being asked about that whole fiasco that went down.
Well, Mabry got hit in the head twice, and had to go into the locker room. And then Landon took a shot to the head while he was sliding. And so that was a penalty. It was not targeting, but it was a shot to the head. And so we're down to our last quarterback. So we didn't feel like we were going to need Hunter. We brought him, and he's our starting quarterback, and so we brought him in as an emergency, and that became an emergency. So he suited up in case we needed him. He probably could have played in the game. He wasn't 100%, and so. We did. We suited him up in the second half just in case something were to happen to Landon Locke. This week we will have 4 quarterbacks on the sideline, and right now all 4 are practicing and are in the room, and we look fine.
He noted early on in the presser that the QB room is healthy. We're all good on that, ready to go. I mean, over the course of a football season, you're never completely 100%, but you try to get as close to 100% as you possibly can. And Luke, I think he's already kind of revealed it. I think we are going to see Hunter Watson get back into that starting role under center against Texas at Austin in DKR. What do you think about his comments about the QB situation on the island, and what could we see out of the QB room against Texas? Like, could we see just Watson? Could we maybe not just see Watson? Are we going to see multiple quarterbacks? Like, what are we going to see?
I think we're going to see multiple quarterbacks. I think it's bound to happen. I'm glad that he's talking about all 4 quarterbacks being ready for Saturday calling. I don't know how many times that or how many teams that you've seen and covered and be successful. Usually, you're not suiting up 4 quarterbacks ready to go in your non-conference. But
I think it helps that it's not like a crazy trip. I don't know if they're taking a bus ride. I don't know if they're taking a flight, but I'm sure they're taking a bus ride to Austin.
yeah, it's about 3 hours, kind of give or take. Made that drive quite a bit. But I don't know. I just don't really have a strong opinion. I mean, I see both sides of like, okay, I'm glad our starter's back and our leader in Hunter Watson, like he was the guy all year last year, and he helped us, obviously with some of the success that we had last year. And this year we haven't seen that same Hunter Watson, I would say. I don't think we've seen him play at his best, which I think is also kind of encouraging, knowing that more is to come in a way. But I don't know. I'm just not thrilled about trying to act excited that we have 4 quarterbacks suiting up for one game. I mean, we're going to play 1 per quarter. I don't think that's how it works. So I just don't. It's hard for me to read into that.
Yeah, it's understandable, but
like positively.
I don't personally. I don't feel any sort of way. It's like, oh, okay, cool, perfect. Like that's really all I'm saying about that, because I don't know I don't know how I should exactly feel about it. Now I will say, Watson has sat back. He's watched the offense. He's watched Longo's offense from the sideline. He's also played in the system, obviously on the field. So maybe he's starting to get, maybe even especially after this bye week, he's starting to get more comfortable. I mean, Longo noted that this Tuesday practice was the best one that they've had all year. And I've honestly haven't heard him say in any press conference that they had a good Tuesday practice this regular season. Moving on real quick. The Longo mentioned that there has been a good bit of continuity on the defense and that they're getting better. And then they had their best game, in my opinion, against Hawaii. I know the score was the score, but I thought that they did what they had to do. It's just, again, the old cliche. You're leaving the defense out there too much, it's not going to end well. But here was Longo, and he made an interesting note about the defense in a way that connects to the offense.
The defense is ahead of the offense right now, and so their improvement is starting to show and translate into better play on the field. There's some erratic play on offense right now, and we are, the O-line has gotten a little bit better each week. I'd like to see better play out of the quarterback position, but, we haven't really, with the exception of one game, we haven't gone through a game with only one guy. And I think the continuity comes with some stability. So hopefully that will be Saturday. This process that I keep talking about is it's a result of some hard work in the locker room and some good coaching by our staff. And so what I really want to see and what we need to keep doing is to continue that process. We need to continue that trend, and we'll get ourselves to a point where it'll be a level of execution where we're winning football games.
Now, Luke, you kind of already put a loss on the record already at the beginning of the show, 0-4. And let's say that hypothetically, even though it's very likely to happen, I mean, ESPN only gives Sam Houston a 1.1% chance. I mean, the line has moved from 42.5 to 39.5. You know, whoopee-doo, honestly. I mean, but anyway, the point is, though, that I'm trying to make, it is going to be extremely difficult to make a bowl game if you end up starting 0-4. We still haven't played the game yet, but if you want to go ahead and pencil it in as a loss, honestly, I don't do that. Like I just like, look and see what happens. I mean, we saw
reason you do play the game for a reason.
Yeah, we saw what happened with Notre Dame and NIU. We saw that last year. No one expected that to happen. No one's expected any like the great upsets we've seen before. I'm not saying that Sam Houston's gonna go in there and upset Texas, but I'm not saying that they're not either. So I'm stuck in the middle on this. But the point is, Luke, it gets to a point, just like in 2023, where the losses start stacking up. And yes, your defense is improving, but the fact that they're ahead of the offense and the offense still seems to be not improving, and hopefully it has started to improve lately, that as long as you get some consistency and the offensive line starts to get the scheme down a little bit better, it's been kind of wishy-washy a little bit on that front. But I'm at least glad to hear that the defense is improving if I were to find a silver lining.
Yeah. I mean, and we've seen that over the past couple of weeks. Like we have seen the defense play a little bit better and better every week. I just, it's hard for me to say, because I mean, outside of what, two guys that I've been kind of impressed with, I mean, has there really been a standout outside of Jameer Diaz? I mean, Iman Allen's played, I think, fine, but other than those two, do you have someone that's really stuck out to you, like, and popped, like, consistently?
You know, it's a really good point.
Like you'll have a guy play great for a quarter or for a half, but then you don't see him the next couple of weeks, like, do anything like that. For me, it's about, I mean, we just have to guys have to make plays, and we just haven't made plays.
So you basically, one of your keys, you're kind of, I don't know if you're spoiling this already or not, but one of your keys sounds like that the playmakers need to get going if they want to at least make things interesting.
Well, yeah, I guess, but like, maybe it's like the pessimist in me is coming out, but I just haven't seen much. I guess I've seen more defensively to be excited about than offensively, but it's really not saying much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, with how bad Texas has played the past few weeks, pretty much all season, offensively, that gives me some hope. But Texas's defense is still really good, right? That's kind of where I'm thinking, like, what is Sam Houston's offense going to do out there? Because Colin, we don't have a receiver that has looked consistent in any game, really. Or we haven't really run the ball that effective. I just don't know. I don't know what the coaches are telling the players, like, hey, like, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to expose Texas this way. We're going to look really good. I don't know. I don't know.
You know what they say, baby. Good teams win, but great teams cover. That's what they say. You taught me that quote, Luke, by the way. I hope you know that.
Oh, I didn't come up with that one. That one's been around for a while.
Yeah.
But like,
you taught me that.
51.5 points, Colin.
It's
the total. Do it.
No,
I don't even know if Sam Houston was going to score.
Hey, I'm just saying right now. I'm calling this right now. If Sam Houston scores first in the game, I am taking a picture of that scoreboard, and it's coming with me. It's staying with me because
40-point spread.
I'm putting that as a frame on the wall. All right, you already mentioned it, Luke. You kind of already talked about the Texas defense. Well, Longo kind of went ahead and talked a little bit about both the offense and the defense of Texas. Here's what he had to say.
Defensively, I'll speak to the D-line is, in my opinion, the strength of the team. I think they make the back end better, and that's no disrespect to the back end. We try to identify the 3 weak players on every defense. We want to know where they are in practice, and we try to attack them. And right now, there's nobody wearing the weak player jerseys in practice with the Texas defense because, we have that much respect for all 11 starters out there, and then they have some depth, so they roll through people at all 3 levels. They're twitchy up front. They get off the football. They're going to be in your offensive line's face immediately. They're going to cross the line of scrimmage, and they're physical, and they do a good job block destruction. Offensively, I think there's a lot of media coverage and attention on the offense right now, but I'm very well aware of what Arch Manning is capable of. Recruited him out of high school, one of the best quarterbacks I've seen coming out of high school in the last 10 years, and I'm also well aware of what some of these players on offense at Texas are capable of doing, and so it's going to be a challenge up front. We know we've got to do a good job. We've got to have some stability up front on the defensive line, and I think we need to challenge Texas schematically a little bit, and continue to try and develop and create some pass rush lanes for us like we did last game in Hawaii. That was an issue the first 2 weeks. Thought we did some things to get that thing going, and that won't be any change here. We're going to need to do that against Texas.
That was head coach Phil Longo on his press conference on Tuesday. Dan, you've already mentioned the defense, Luke. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, honestly, you can go ahead and call it the best defense in the country. I mean, it's not the starters are really good, Luke, but the depth over there is really good. I mean, you got Guy mentioned Colin Simmons, Eric Henry, and Eric Henry goes more into depth, and that interview is coming up in just a few moments. But man, this defense is just it's probably as close. It's probably almost. It's like an almost NFL ready. It's like an NFL ready defense. They're not an NFL defense, but it's like they're almost NFL ready in a way.
No, yeah, I mean you're exactly right. And that's kind of what the story was last year. If you remember, Texas defense late in games in the goal line stands, just probably the most clutch defense that in the country last year. And this year they've continued that. I know they lost the game up in Columbus against Ohio State, and I know it was 7-14. And for how bad Texas played offensively, they only lost by 7 points to the number one team now the number one team in the country. Then I think they were 2 or 3 or whatever it was. And they haven't really given much up since. So for all the talk that how bad Texas has looked, the most points they've given up in a game is 10 points. Or I'm sorry, 14 points. Like that's pretty good, right? And whether it's Burke on the defensive line, Simmons, Anthony Hill, who I think is probably the best linebacker in college and has a shot to probably go in the top 5 of the draft, top 10 definitely. On the back end, Malik Muhammad is a very good player. Michael Taft is an All-American safety. I mean, they have All-Americans at each level of the defense, which is impressive. We don't have anything like that at Sam. But
no, we don't. But
it's a unique challenge like that. The offense is going to be put in predicaments all day because I think with how bad everyone has talked about how bad Texas has looked, Colin, it might be the night where Texas explodes and we can't do anything about it. But then I also think coming off a bye week, I bet you Longo has some things rolled up the sleeve with this week. Like I'm sure you're going to see a backwards pass, a couple trick plays, maybe a fake punt or something to try to get some momentum early in the game because, like Longo said, the depth with Texas, and that's the story of them every year, is they're always going to have players. They're always going to have guys on their practice squad that could star for you. They're going to have first team players, all NFL guys, like first round picks. They're going to have those guys, but we're going to have to use this bye week and really take advantage of just the time that of preparation and find a way just to squeak a play here or two just to build some momentum early.
And then lastly, before we get to my interview with Eric Henry, the offense, we already know the storyline. It's Arch Manning not looking too good, and mechanics. The injury stuff was kind of the injury stuff, and Eric Henry got into it in the interview a little bit. How the injury speculation was, it's basically BS if you want to just put it plain and simple. I mean, that grimace that he had,
All-time quote, by the way, by Sark.
what? Oh yeah. Henry got into that too. It was actually a student that asked Sark that question on the press conference that following Monday. It was what was it? It was I don't look at your face when you go to use the bathroom or something like that.
Which is funny because the equivalent he's we're comparing someone going to the bathroom and Arch Manning throwing a football. Like it's just awesome.
Sark's honestly he's one of a kind. He's one of the kind, but he is the play caller. He's the mastermind. I mean, folks, by the way, this pod is going to run a good long while. I apologize, but there's so much to really get into and break down when it comes to this matchup against Texas, and the fact that I have two interviews, which is very unusual. It's the first time in Sam Houston Sports Talk history we're going to have two guests on one pod. Yeah, two guests
There's
on
the
one
growth.
pod. Yeah, no, we really, I really appreciate Eric Henry and CJ Vogel taking the time to talk some ball. But anyway, Sark, we all know Sark's offense. We all know how it is. It's quick. It's finding space for the playmakers out there. That's what makes it really deadly, especially on the short game, the screen passes. The running game is pretty solid. The offensive line is interesting this year. It's a little interesting, but if they can figure out how they can get Arch going, then it can really ease the tension a little bit on the offensive line. I mean, they have a really good left tackle, but the other stuff is a little iffy, especially since that they're not going to have their starting center potentially this week, and they're not going to have their backup running back CJ Baxter. Wisner is up in the air a little bit. I mean, they still got good wideouts, like you said, in Livingston and in Wingo. So this could be a game. Look like I don't want to talk about it like this, but this could be a game where Arch does get going, because this passing defense for Sam Houston still has a lot to prove to us that it can be good. Not just, and I'm not talking about for this, particular game is going to be pretty hard, but it's going to be a thing where they're going to have to prove that they can get things going in Conference USA play if they want to have a shot to somehow getting to 6 wins or getting to 5-7, and hope that there's not enough qualified teams to make a bowl game, like there has been over the past couple of years. But this is by and large, Luke, the toughest offense that Sam Houston has faced in recent memory.
Yeah, it'll definitely be, just from a matchup standpoint, it's going to be tough, right? I mean, like you said, the Texas offensive line, I mean, they lost, I think 2 or 3 guys to the NFL, 2 of them being pretty high picks, and they reload like instantly, right? Goosby's such a solid player. And with like the Sam Houston's pass rush, like outside of Diaz, it's been kind of non-existent, right? And so you're hoping maybe you can find something there. And the injuries of Texas, I mean, like CJ Baxter, I know he came off of a huge injury. I think it was a ACL, or maybe it was an Achilles the year before. He hasn't looked the same like he did when he first came out of his freshman year, I guess that would have been. So I think there are some kind of guys that you don't have to worry about, but like Wingo really hasn't gotten going this year, Colin. and that dude's a 5-star. He's right up there with the talents of like Jeremiah Smith, and Ryan Williams, and like all these guys that you hear about. Um, he was a 5-star right with there with them. So I think there's plenty to be concerned right there, especially with the lack of consistency on the back end. It'll be interesting to see if Allen maybe matches up with him. DeAndre Moore Jr., I don't know if he's out for this game for Texas. I think he's still kind of up in the air because he didn't play last week, but he played against San Jose. He's a great receiver. He's a guy they put in the slot, they put on the outside.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't know. Like, is Allen going to stay on one side? Is he going to follow Wingo? Because Wingo really hasn't gotten going. So if you could shut him down and really, force Manning to kind of go one way with the ball, I don't know. There's just a lot of things up in the air right now that you're hoping Sam can do something with. We just don't really know because we haven't seen Sam Houston really play well on the back end.
Well, that puts a bow on this first segment. Coming up next, I had a couple of interviews. I first sat down with Eric Henry, a beat reporter for 24/7 Sports on Longhorn football and basketball. He's also taken on baseball. He's also a guy that used to cover Conference USA on part with SB Nation on FIU's part. So he saw a big upset one time, FIU beating Miami that one year. And I also had the chance to talk to CJ Vogel of On Texas Football. Those interviews come your way next here on Sam Houston Sports Talk. All right, joining us now on Sam Houston Sports Talk. Luke won't be able to join me for this one, so it's just me. Eric Henry, he's been covering Longhorn football for 3 years for 24/7 Sports. He also covers basketball and just took on baseball as well. Eric, thank you for hopping on and just to discuss this weekend's matchup, just to kind of lead things off a little bit. This season of Longhorn football hasn't exactly been up to expectations so far. It's no secret. For me working at a sports radio station, everyone's talking about, Arch this, Arch that, Texas this, Texas that. But just Eric, it's still early, but what has been your perspective so far on Texas Longhorn football?
Yeah, first off, Colin, appreciate you having me on. It's funny you talk about the expectation, right? It almost gets lost in the shuffle. This team is still number 8 in the country, right? Now, of course, when you open as the preseason number 1 and you come off of the last 2 years of making the college football playoff, and not just the college football playoff, reaching the semifinal, right? And you can make the case that Texas came a handful of plays in both years from advancing from the semifinal and reaching the college football playoff national title game. The expectations are through the roof, right? And then you add one little log onto the fire. Maybe I shouldn't say little, but the little log named Arch Manning, and then everything goes to the roof, right? So yeah, I do think it all depends on what prism you want to view this from. If you're like me, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I did feel like at times I was one of the few people in this market who was trying to remind people you have a first-time starting quarterback who, prior to the Ohio State game, had only started 2 games in his career, one against Louisiana Monroe, the other against Mississippi State. And you're replacing so many players on offense, right? Let's run down the list. You're talking about 4 stars on the offensive line. You're talking about skill position guys like Isaiah Bond, Matt Golden, Gunnar Helm. You lose a running back in Jaden Blue, right? Even, Colin, we were talking about this earlier today, some the people on the beat and myself. Even the backups who would come into play last year, guys like Juan Davis, Cole Hudson, those were veteran guys who either had been with the program for 3-4 years or had started games. So you take all of those factors out of the equation, you put together this young offense, or I should say inexperienced offense, that haven't played a ton of time together. And I can get into some more of the details of that, I'm sure, with some of your questions. I feel like if you view it through that prism, it isn't disappointing. But if you view it through the prism that I laid at the beginning, which is the team that made 2 straight college football playoffs and had Arch Manning, the quote unquote Heisman favorite entering the year, then yeah, you'll be disappointed. It all depends on what lens you want to view it through.
Yeah, it is interesting, how expectations can be built. I mean, the thing is, they open up with a very tough task, which is on the road at the shoe against the former against the reigning national champion. But I will say, if you want, if you want to be that kind of person, the one positive that you can't ignore has been that great defense. Just talk a little bit more about that defense, if you don't mind.
No, I mean, the defense is the thing that I felt most confident in entering the year. The reason for that is they have all Americans at each level of the defense, all American type players, a trio of preseason all Americans, starting with Colin Simmons. And I guess I'll spend a little bit of time on Colin. It's very clear he's almost like the defensive Arch Manning of this football team. And what I mean by that is Steve Sarkisian has talked about Arch Manning pressing a little bit to make plays. Maybe that's why his throwing motion is kind of weird, right? Wonky with that sidearm that you hadn't really seen before. Colin Simmons is the same thing. You're talking about a guy who led this team in sacks with 9 as a true freshman last year, and he did that without even being a full-time guy. It wasn't a full-time starter, right? And the expectation that he set for himself was he wants to set the program record for sacks in a season. Well, he's got more penalties for than he does sacks, which is a half a sack. All right. So Colin, former 5-star recruit out of Duncanville, everyone who will watch this will certainly know Duncanville and know that type of program. He's pressing. But to your question, yes, the defense is talented. It starts with a guy like him. The interior defensive line. We were on the Zoom with Phil Longo earlier today. Phil Longo was very complimentary of the interior defensive line, talking about the depth at defensive tackle. You go to linebacker, Anthony Hill, arguably the nation's best defensive player, him, Caleb Downs, a couple of the guys you could throw in there. And then you go the back end, you have an all-American type player in Michael Taff, right? So I think the reason this defense has been so good, because they play for an excellent defensive coordinator and Pete Kukowski. That's step one. Step two, you have so many guys that are really confident in the system, right? They're not thinking out there. They're able to just go play football because you have guys like Taft, guys like Anthony Hill, guys like Jalen Gilbo, Malik Muhammad in the secondary. They've been in this system for multiple years. So it's not like they're, having to think about what they're being asked to do. They can just go do it. And lastly, as I mentioned, we talk about Phil Longo being very complimentary. He said that everything starts with this defensive line and how that defensive line kind of helps make that secondary. That those are Phil's words, not mine. I think all 3 levels kind of work together. But this defensive line has been huge. And for a Sam Houston State club that obviously is going to be an air raid focused team on Saturday, any attempt they're going to have to run the ball, it's going to be a challenge. And quite frankly, they're going to need to get the ball out of their hands. Whoever is playing quarterback for Sam Houston's need to get the ball out of their hands quickly because that defensive line will get to you.
What can you say is a weakness or two that Sam Houston could potentially try to expose on that Longhorn defense?
Ooh, on the okay, I thought you were going to say on the Longhorn team. On the defense, I got to be honest with you, Colin. It's very hard to find a weakness. If I had to think I had to think of 2. One, as I mentioned, Colin Simmons is certainly pressing. He's not playing within himself. If Colin's going to continue to do that on Saturday, he's just taking himself out of the game. All right. So in that sense, that is something that can be exploited. Also, and again, I'm not. This isn't a consistent weakness, but you saw it from Trey Moore, the UTSA transfer, San Antonio product last week. You've seen a little bit from Colin. When those guys, those edges, because they haven't gotten home, are so keyed in on getting home, you might be able to pop a run play here or there because they're just focused on getting around that tackle that they maybe, vacate their gap, their lane integrity, and you can do things like that. But I know I'm reaching there, but trust me, through 3 games, you haven't seen very many weaknesses from this defense.
Eric Henry of 24/7 Sports covering Longhorn football and basketball joining us here on Sam Houston Sports Talk. All right, let's go ahead and flip to the other side of the ball, the one that's been garnering the most attention, of course, just kind of outside of Arch, just kind of what can you say about the offense?
As I mentioned, the offense, it's so many new faces, so many new pieces, right? And I, like I said, I thought you were going to say maybe a weakness Sam Houston can exploit on as far as the team. This offense is just lack of cohesion, lack of chemistry. That's something you can exploit. I will point to the Sam Houston State game and point to the UTEP game. Texas has not had success early in games offensively. Against San Jose State, their quarterback Walker Eget, and of course, we know San Jose State, if you're a Group of 5 fan, lost Nick Nash, who was, the Triple Crown winner, excuse me, right? Led the nation in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. They got another stud in Danny Scudero, Sacramento State transfer, who beat Texas true freshman cornerback Grayson Littleton. That was a wide open score if Walker Egan just hits him, overthrows him, right? There's 7 points. There was the next drive where they should have been up 7-0 that Egan on once it's third and 3, 3rd and 4, inexplicably decides to run out of bounds for a loss of 6 instead of getting rid of the ball, pushes his kicker back 6 yards, he misses the field goal. San Jose State should have been up 10-0. Had UTEP been able to take advantage of Texas's offensive struggles early in the game, they would have been up, right? So, in bringing it back to this offense, the lack of cohesion, they just are not on the same page. The Texas running back room banged up. Quintravion Wisner is going to be a game time decision. That's their starting running back. He's got a bit of a hamstring. He's had a couple of injuries. C.J. Baxter, who got the start in place of Trey Wisner, he was declared out by Steve Sarkisian on Monday, right? So you're looking at inexperienced freshman running backs. At receiver, Ryan Wingo was supposed to be the wide receiver one. He missed the majority of spring camp with he had LASIK and a couple other injuries, and then missed some time in fall camp. It's clear the chemistry, anyone who has watched Texas football, Wingo trying to go this way to catch passes, and they're kind of all over the place. It's clear that the chemistry between Arch Manning and Ryan Wingo isn't there. It's the reason why Arch Manning's favorite targets have been Parker Livingstone and tight end Jack Endry. So in terms of this offense, it's just a lack of cohesion. And if Sam Houston, I guess it's Sam Houston now. Forgive me, I'm going throwback reference and went Sam Houston State there. But if Sam Houston is going to be able to take advantage of that on Saturday, if Texas starts slow, they have to be able to find points early in the game.
You talk about lack of cohesion on the offensive side, but they're also dealing with some injury issues on the offensive line. Just kind of what can you tell us about that? It seems like that they're going to be missing a guy or two for Saturday.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit iffy, right, Colin? So Center Cole Hudson, that's one of the veterans I mentioned who was a reserve last year, but started as a true freshman back in 2022. He's at center now. He missed I think Steve said it was 18 to 19 snaps with kind of an undisclosed injury. That forced Connor Robertson, who is a fourth year player, backup center, backup kind of interior line guy to come in and play center, especially as I mentioned, this offensive line, it definitely kind of embodies the lack of cohesion of this football team. It's not that they're bad, because they're not, but they certainly don't look like that cohesive unit that Longhorn fans have become accustomed to seeing over the past few years, when you knew you had Kelvin Banks at left tackle, Christian Jones or Cam Williams at right tackle, Cole Hudson, Jake Major is a 5-year starter at center, right? DJ Campbell is the lone returner on the offensive line. He was a 3-year starter for that unit last year, right? So that lack of cohesion is definitely noticeable. But to your question about the injury, yeah, the only injury that we know of is Cole Hudson, and it looks as if Cole is going to play. But if he doesn't, look for Connor Robertson. Outside of that, it should be kind of business as usual.
Do you think complacency also plays in part a little bit of how like, I mean, I don't want to say how bad as in like, oh, they played terribly. They've won their last 2 games, of course, but do you think complacency plays sort of a part in how sloppy, let's say, that they look?
I don't think so, Colin, to be honest. I don't see complacency. I just see a bunch of guys pressing. I see a bunch of guys who aren't just used to playing with each other. It's one of the things, and listen, I could do a whole podcast on this. I'll spare your audience. But one of the traits of Quinn Ewers that I thought really went underrated, is his ability to earn that respect, and the guys trusting in him when things would go awry could really calm down the offense. And also his ability to just take what's there from the defense, right? Some people call it check down Charlie, but Quinn always had a quote. He said he can't go broke taking a profit, right? He was not afraid to take that 3-4 yard pattern, keep the offense on schedule, and then if you get in a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2 type situation, then convert, right? Texas offense has struggled to get into 3rd and manageable situations. They at last checked were like 113th, 117th in that range in the nation in 3rd down conversion percentage. It's because they haven't been on schedule, whether it's been in the San Jose State game, a ton of offensive penalties, or against UTEP, not getting off to a good start on 1st down. They've been behind schedule. So that's one of the things when you say, does it feel like it feels to me more of just pressing and guys not really knowing to kind of take what's there as opposed to, complacency.
Eric Henry of 24/7 Sports, writing Longhorn football and basketball, joining us here on Sam Houston Sports Talk. Just I got a couple more for you. Of course, I feel like
Yeah.
I do have to ask about Arch himself. I mean, all this hype that's been building up and whatsoever. Like I said, Heisman favorite. Kind of like a two-parter. This I was watching the UTEP Texas game. I might actually go back and watch it. Later on tonight because I'm a sicko. I gotta try to know as much as I possibly can. But if I remember correctly, Arch just sometimes seemed hesitant on his first read sometimes, or when he sees a receiver that has a good window open, it just kind of looks like that he hesitates and then he waits 1 second too long and that window is closed. And do you th- and then I hear Sark on his Monday presser saying they're they want to try to get they probably want to it sounds like that they are going to have Arch running the football more himself because
Yeah.
that was kind of his strength last year whenever he filled in for Quinn on certain plays, like his legs were a big weapon. Do you think that maybe Sark is going to try to get Arch running the football more in order to give himself more confidence that hopefully that becomes contagious into the passing game?
Yeah, I'll answer, those questions in reverse. It's really interesting, Colin, because when we spoke with Steve Sarkisian in the offseason, we talked about, hey, do you open up more of the QB run game because you have a quarterback who's a dynamic threat? Steve would consistently say, well, we're never going to be an offense that majors in the quarterback run, right? Now you've heard his tone shift a little bit because of the offensive struggles. It's almost like, hey, we got to do whatever we can to move the football. And he said that Arch, and I want to try and quote him directly, but the gist of the quote is that he feels that Arch, when he's able to use his legs, get hit a couple times, that almost gets him into the flow of the game a little bit more, a little bit easier than some of the other things they've tried to do. So it wouldn't shock me if they tried to do that. Now, the risk you run is quarterback injury. Over Steve Sarkisian's 4 years, I guess this would be game 59 as head coach over his, and now in his fifth season, he's never had one quarterback play the entirety of the season because of injury. So how often do you want to push that button, right? But I think that's an accurate assessment on your part from what you heard from Steve on Monday. As far as Arch being hesitant, I would be inclined to agree. You take a look at that Ohio State game, the first pass he throws, he skips it to DeAndre Moore, and it did feel like it took him a little bit of time to kind of get his footing. As a result, I don't want to say he's gun shy, but Arch Manning himself said that his issues right now are more mental than they are physical. Now, maybe that was Arch just, for lack of a better word, flippantly answering the question, because if you say your issues are physical, that would have opened up the entire conversation that we put to bed a couple of weeks ago about the grimace and, oh my gosh, is Arch Manning injured, right? Like, so if he says it's physical, then you're almost opening up that can of worms. So I understand in that sense for Arch, maybe it's easy for him to just say it's mental, but I don't think anyone would be out of line in questioning or speculating as to whether Arch is having a little bit of a confidence issue, confidence in himself, confidence in the read, confidence in what he's supposed to do out there. I don't think that's out of bounds to say.
Can you kind of clarify a little bit on the grimace that went viral and it got a
Sure.
yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So there was a during the San Jose State game, the television broadcast. I
Yeah.
believe that was a ESPN or ABC broadcast. They spotlighted Arch as he was throwing, kind of making a face like as if it was painting, as if he was pained, if it was a grimace, right, as he was throwing the football. And that became the big storyline in the post game. Steve Sarkisian made a peculiar answer to that. I'll let you guys look that up. Well, let me clarify. In the post game, he said that he didn't see anything, right? And he wasn't aware. Arch Manning said no, kind of shot it down. It was the following Monday, which Steve was asked about it by a reporter, and Steve made a a peculiar comment about saying, "Hey, I don't watch and see the faces you guys make when you're using the bathroom." All right. I'm not sure how that answered the question, Steve, but that's where he went. So that's what that's in reference to. So yeah, it almost feels like if Arch says no, the issue is physical, then you're reopening that can of worms, which probably would not have made his head coach happy.
See, guys, he's not hurt. I mean, honestly, I think Sark honestly was probably He probably didn't like that because it's like because you're kind of accusing him of malpractice, so taking care of his quarterback.
Right.
And
Right.
like you said, Steve Sarkisian, the last thing he wants is another injured quarterback to where he's gonna have to play another one. Like because consistency at that quarterback room is very key, especially for his offense. For how effective it is. It's not just the quarterback; it's the other playmakers out on the outside, especially, and in the running game. But man, it's you don't want inconsistency at the quarterback room. Eric, before I let you off, just kind of any final thoughts, and I don't know, um, just kind of, I mean, it's a night game it's the first night game at DKR. It's most likely gonna be another packed crowd. Just kind of what other final thoughts that you haven't gotten to say about Texas, and I don't know, maybe some advice you can probably, or not advice, some keys you could probably give Sam Houston if they want to, you know not just kind of be able to manage this environment that they're going to be walking in.
Yeah, I think when you take a look at this matchup, right, and as we talk about off here, I covered Group of Five, specifically Conference USA, for 6 years. I covered a school in FIU that pulled off an upset of a Miami, right? So I'm a little familiar with, schools kind of pulling off big upsets from the leagues I covered prior. If you're going to do so, first things first, right? You got to be able, you have to be able to be firing all cylinders. You have to start fast. As I mentioned, if you are going to get this Texas team, you have to take advantage of whatever offensive ineptitude, whatever offensive struggles they have early on. It can't be a situation where you trade punts with them because eventually, especially let's just call it a spade, in the transfer portal era, in the NIL era, right? Group of fives aren't able to bring veteran, juniors and seniors back. They've been playing for 3 and 4 years together, right? Sam Houston, and of course, with Casey Keeler leaving and a lot of the talents that either in the portal or graduating, these are all new guys, right? So you got to have, if you're going to make an impact against Texas, those guys have to strike early because just the sheer talent level, you can't afford to trade punts with Texas. That'd be the first thing. The second thing is do not try and run the ball inside on Texas. I've seen teams try to do that, and I think it's very clear. And I'll run down a couple of names. Hero Canu, an Ohio State transfer. Murad Watson, Syracuse transfer. Cole Brevard, who Canu called the strongest man he's ever played with, right? A big 350-pound Purdue transfer. That's the meat of their defensive line in the interior. If you're going to try to get this Texas team, you're going to have to do it sideline to sideline. You cannot go up the middle. There's that. And the third thing, I'd be super curious. That's why I asked Phil Longo about his veterans, right? Guys like Hunter Watson who've played a lot of football. CJ Brown is a fifth or sixth year guy, has gone to Texas A&M, gone to Penn State in his career when he was with Bowling Green in Northern Illinois. It's going to be those guys to kind of keep the composure if Sam Houston's going to have a chance to stay in the ballgame.
Yeah, especially Longo has experience in hostile environments with being at Ole Miss and in North Carolina. This is an interesting matchup. I think the main thing though for Sam Houston is just to come out healthy. UTEP did not come out healthy last week. They lost. They had to like take a couple of their key defensive players, especially on the interior, out of the game. But it's weird how these games are. Because you know let's just call it for what it is. It's ESPN gives Sam Houston a 1.1% chance in this game. The odds have Sam Houston open up as a 42.5 point underdog. And it's interesting how to approach these kind of games because you don't want to come off like, oh, we're gonna go in and we're gonna win, but it's not. But you don't want to also go, oh, we're just gonna lay down.
Right.
We're gonna collect our check. We're gonna collect our check and get out. But bringing you on though kind of gives more insight. Like, hey, you could be the number 10 team in the country, number 7 team in the country, the number 1 team in the country. You could still have some flaws that can be exploited. I mean, we saw what Northern Illinois did to Notre Dame and South Bend last year.
There you go.
And like you said, you've seen big upsets before your eyes and all that. But Eric, I really appreciate you hopping on Sam Houston Sports Talk just to give some perspective, your own perspective on Texas Longhorn football. I'm gonna be there in Austin. It's gonna be my first time going to DKR. I'm pretty excited to see what that's like, especially at night.
Yeah, hey, man, if you ever need any tips or run into any issues, you getting upstairs, the press box at DKR going to a little bit of construction, so you might get a little lost.
Oh,
So if you need anything, man, feel free to reach out. But no, DKR at night is definitely a cool atmosphere for sure.
yeah. Well, thank you, Eric. Appreciate you, and we'll see you there.
See you there, man. Take care.
Alrighty, let's get to our second guest. Joining me is CJ Vogel, college football insider and recruiting analyst covering the University of Texas for On Texas Football. He's been covering Texas Longhorn football overall for 6 years. CJ, thank you for joining me. Just there's been a lot of storylines for Texas football. Probably not for what they for hope for, really. Just kind of what's been the vibe so far from your point of view on when it comes to Longhorn football this season.
Yeah, I think you got one side of the football that's lived up to the billing, and the other side that's done anything but that. So, how do you go about maneuvering through that when that's kind of the reality of Texas football at the moment? Obviously, Arch Manning and the Texas offense have sputtered all 3 weeks. You only score once against Ohio State. You haven't looked great in your two other non-conference games, and there were boo birds out at home a week ago. So. I'm not sure anybody really anticipated that coming into the season yet. Through 3 weeks, that's kind of where things sit in Austin, Texas.
I saw your Instagram reel after the UTEP game about if I remember correctly, you said something about how it's like time to like kind of get real a little bit or something like that. Just can
Yeah.
you kind of explain like the what right now you like kind of talk about what your thought process was after the UTEP game and kind of what it is now that you've had a few days to sit on it.
Yeah, well, it's still not great, and having rewatched the UTEP game a few times, there are a lot of issues. Arch Manning being one of them, but offensively, you don't have a plethora of playmakers, right? In years past, you had Xavier Worthy with Jatavian Sanders, and you had your running back stable, but you also had Adonai Mitchell, and last year you had Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden, and you had Gunnar Helm, all of which were draft picks, right? This year, you're missing a lot, right? Ryan Wingo's fine. They haven't been able to connect. Parker Livingstone has been very talented, but very surprising for Texas, but that's about it. Injuries have plagued Texas right now on the outside, and I think you're seeing that rub off on Arch, but on top of that, you're not getting a push up front. You can't successfully run the football on 3rd and 1s. You can't convert on 3rd and 2s in the goal line. Anything, 1 or 2 yards away from the goal line looks like it's the most impossible objective in football for the Texas offensive line. So it has to improve across the board. It's been concerning. And so, yeah, my panic button hasn't been pushed yet, but my hand's on the button right now. And again, moving into SEC play in 3 weeks, I think it's one of those things where if it's not straightened out or if you don't at least see the steps taken forward, then yeah, there's no reason to expect that SEC play is going to be any different. And that's when you really start to get in trouble when you can't play that complementary football and take care of your offensive side of the ball.
Well, let's go ahead and look in a little bit more into on the offensive side of the ball. I'm not the biggest football expert, but every time I watch Texas, when I get the chance, ever since Sark has been there, he's what one thing that I've always seen that he does really well with his offensive schemes that does a good job of getting skilled players in the open space, giving them an opportunity to make plays,
Right.
on the screens, along the boundaries or just anything like just the hey, you can go out there, you're an athlete, go out there and make a play. But and then you said they're kind of lacking the skill, the playmakers that they've had in recent years. But is there are there any others, are there any silver linings to this offense, especially for this year? And just kind of go into more depth about the offense and what we could expect this Saturday from Sam Houston's point of view.
Yeah, it's funny. The two touchdowns that Texas had early against San Jose State, they were schemed open, right? It was a pump and go on the outside on a screenplay, and then it was a tight end leak, kind of a long establishing play action play that got the tight end open for a 30-yard score as well. So those are the schemes. Those are the play designs coming to life and really allowing Texas to be successful offensively. But when it comes to the one-on-ones, when it comes to finding holes in zone coverages, when it comes to beating your man on specific routes, Texas hasn't done a lot of that so far. Not to the level that maybe you would have expected coming into the season. And again, maybe that changes when DeAndre Moore and Emmett Mosley return to the field. Who knows? But right now, you got to work with what you got. And right now, it's been a very underwhelming bunch on the outside. Outside of Wingo and Livingston, there's just not a lot for Texas to point to and say, okay, we trust this wide receiver in this situation. And I think that certainly rubbed off on the confidence of Arch Manning, but it certainly would be remedied, in my opinion, Colin, if Texas were to run the football. And the numbers might look okay, around 130, 140 yards a game. But when you account most of that's coming from the quarterback run itself, which has been a bright spot, it kind of takes away the shine of what you would expect, a true running game to look like in key situations.
Do you think Sark doesn't want to buy too much into the QB run? I mean, it's because it's pretty clear that Arch's biggest weapon right now that you can count on is his legs.
Yeah.
And we saw how it unfolded last year in flashes, and that's what made a lot of people excited. Man, if he has those great those good of legs running the football, I mean, the arm's got to be there. But we've obviously seen how the arm looks so far.
Yeah, I think, part of it for Sark is, look, I have 8 SEC games in which I've got to bring my best, and my best probably needs to be better than what I thought, given the play of the quarterback with his arms. So his legs are going to be a factor. How much will they be this weekend? I don't know. Again, I think the objective for Sark is to get in the SEC play and let your defense really take over. But this week, I've kind of changed my tune about Arch, and I said, you know what, this probably isn't going to be the best quarterback in football this year. I think we can confidently say that. And so the way that Texas utilizes him, I kind of look at what Georgia Tech does with the Haynes King and say, hey, if you can get the dirty yards and just move the chains to allow yourself a new life, that might be the best solution for a quarterback right now that is completely in his head.
Yeah, I'm sure A&M regrets running him out of town. Just to kind of, you've already mentioned the defense. I mean that's. I mean, I think you can ask anybody, and they will probably agree with you. And if you say that is the best defense in the country, like just kind of go into that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think it's talented. I think even then, the ceiling is still higher than what Texas is deploying on the field. And I say that because, look, Colin Simmons through 3 weeks been a bit of a no-show. He's had some penalty issues that have certainly kept him sidelined. Anthony Hill had a great week too. It didn't do a lot against Ohio State. Is still kind of ramping up his usage as well. So this defensive front has surprised me, and the guys that have stood the test of time up there so far have surprised me. A Hero Canoe coming over from Ohio State. I wasn't really expecting him to be one of the guys. And right now, Texas, again, very limited in terms of allowing explosive plays, especially in the run game. I've been very pleased with that. I think the speed up front in that front seven is as good as they've ever had under Pete Kwiatkowski. And right now, again, that's going to be the side of the football that kind of carries the load and keeps games close until this offense figures things out. So they have star power. They're very sound when it comes to communication and not allowing busts down the field. But right now, that defensive front is really the ultimate strength of this Texas football team.
Looks like that they're dealing with injuries on the offensive side, kind of, and on the other side too. Is there? I know that they're not. I know Sark said on Monday that they're not going to have C.J. Baxter. I think that Dotson is the starting center. It came out of the game against UTEP for like 18 plays, and they're kind of shuffling things along the offensive line. I mean, they have a really good. I mean, that line has a good left tackle in Gooseby, but kind of everything else though along that offensive line still kind of seems like up in the air, especially since you lost your starting center.
Yeah, and that's a fourth year guy. That was a guy that started at right guard as a true freshman. He's kind of played sparingly at right guard ever since. Now he's back in the rotation full time as a center, and you're kind of leaning on Cole Hudson to be one of your focal points, to be one of your cornerstones of the offensive line. And if he's unable to go, what does that look like? Who comes in? I would bet Connor Robertson, a fourth year center again, fills that void, and Texas tries to keep that continuity at the other four offensive line positions. But to your point, there's been some shuffling, and I think There's still an opportunity for Texas to test out different looks on that offensive line to ultimately reach the ceiling of this unit. And it's a far, far ways from where it is today versus what the expectations were and what I ultimately think it could be.
Speaking of expectations, just kind of what do you think Arch Manning's biggest problem is right now? Do you think it is on the more mental side? Is it mechanically? Can it be a good mix of both, or do you think one or the other is affecting is kind of just being contagious to the other?
I think it's all in his head. And it's almost the most unfortunate answer there because I wish it was an elbow issue. I wish it was a foot issue. I wish it was a shoulder issue that you could point to and say, okay, once you remedy that, once he gets back to full health, then he'll return to the quarterback that we saw in spurts in 2024. But that's not the case. And that's the scariest issue because you don't know if he'll figure it out between the ears. You don't know if that'll be the guy that ever returns to what Texas saw a year ago. And again, there were still growing pains last year, but you saw the explosivity. You saw him connect downfield on the big plays. You saw him play with swagger. And I've talked about this a little bit this week, Colin. You can't play the quarterback position being timid. You can't play it without having that chip on your shoulder. And I look back at, some of the best quarterbacks that Texas has played over the last few years. Who were some of those guys? Well, Baker Mayfield, I think Joe Burrow. These guys had swagger. They walked on the field and they were guys that the team rallied around and they let defenses know, I'm on you today. I'm coming for you. And right now, that's the complete opposite of what we've seen through 3 weeks with Arch Manning. And that's got to change. It's got to be a guy that plays with swagger, has fun out there, plays loose, because he's tightened up. He's looked rattled. He looks like a guy that is too worried about making the mistake versus a guy that just plays naturally and free.
Yeah, so Sam Houston's coming off of a bye week, so they'll be fresh, ready to go. They came off of a game against Hawaii before this past week, and it's interesting. It's interesting these kind of games are because I mean, I don't really know a proper term for these kind of games where people have already like, yeah, I mean, ESPN gives us a 1.1% chance of in this game, and the books obviously are the books. They're gonna say what they want to say. Like 30 last time I checked, 39.5 point spread. Just kind of. Do you think but then you see them struggle against San Jose State and UTEP. Do you think complacency is a bit of an issue for this team as well?
Yeah, I think part of that could be, I think also having not seen early success in games really just compounds and piles up on Texas offensively. And as a result, you kind of look down at UTEP and you're like, wait, it's 7-3 and it's close to halftime. It's like, is this really going to be one of those games that comes down to the wire? And that's the last thing you want to do is keep a team around that you mentioned a 39-point spread. In this game specifically, you kind of sit there and say, well, you can't keep giving extra lives and opportunities. And look, Sam Houston's been able to move the football. I'm looking specifically at Elijah Green saying you can't get this guy going because Texas has been burned on the outside. And all it takes is one or two big time plays for an offense that can't score on the other side to look around and say it's a tied ball game deep into the second quarter, deep into the third quarter. And that's when you really get a team to believe. So that's really an issue for me on the Texas side is they kind of play with their food. And that gives teams a lot of hope in big games. And this is one of those moments where hope can really start to snowball and momentum can really start to flip to the other side of the stadium. And that's not what I think Texas is hoping for.
Well, it just got reported. It got reported last night by Texas Football that DKR is sold out. It will be. It's obviously a night game. It's the first night game of the year over there in
Thank
Austin.
goodness.
I'm sorry.
Thank goodness. It gets hot out there at
It can,
2 in the afternoon.
the thing is, though, I was like, I hope it's an. I was like thinking in my head, like, if it's a night game and get DKR, it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nicer outside, but man, it's gonna be packed because it's a night game. I mean, night games are awesome, and almost everyone's able to go. Uh, people could say that the pressure is more on Sam Houston because obviously they're the road team. They're going into that environment where there's going to be potentially over 100,000 people. But then I also look at Texas's side and I look back at what happened at UTEP game. Their Arch is getting booed and there's some boos ringing on the Texas offense. Do you think that Texas is also dealing with the pressure now to perform against sold out crowd potentially.
Yeah, you get booed at home. I think that your back's certainly against the wall when it comes to your next performance. Like you need to show up. 2 consecutive weeks of getting booed at home, I think, would diminish any remaining confidence for Arch Manning. And again, that's one of the big focal points that I've been hounding, saying Texas needs more of. So they have to come out perform. And for Steve Sarkisian specifically, look, you've had the football every single possession to start the game, every single opening possession, and you've not come close to scoring points. You've gone turnover on downs, punt, turnover on downs. In fact, since 2023, quick fun stat for you: Texas has played 32 games. They've received the opening kickoff 22 times. They've only put points on the board twice out of those 22 opportunities. I'm looking at Steve Sarkisian saying, "Look, if your offense, if your side of the football can't get right, pressure is there, 100% going into the SEC play."
All right, so before a couple more things before we wrap this up, just kind of what are you going to be looking out of Texas to do from your end against Sam Houston for them to be successful?
Yeah, I look at previous games for Sam Houston, especially defensively, and say, okay, they allow a lot of explosives, right? I think that at times, especially against Hawaii, I believe, that was one of those late nights where you're like, I'll just take whatever spread's available. So I was tuned into that game. Did not hit, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
no, you see that at times it gets leaky in the back end. There are running lanes available at times, and that's again, I go back to the Texas offense and a lot of its issues. Texas doesn't have the explosive play this year. They've not been able to pick up chunk yardage on a single snap. They've had to kind of crawl down fields to go score points, and really, they've only had 2 drives this entire season that have scored points from 65 yards or longer outside of the goal line. So, can Texas even move the football is going to be a big question. What can they do in the explosive pass game? Or can they get that run game? Texas hasn't had a run of 20 yards or more from a running back going all the way back to Clemson of the college football playoff a year ago. So, a lot of questions that I'm looking at for Texas saying, can this team even come close to what the expectations were coming into the season?
And if you were to give Sam Houston advice on how could, could they be successful, what would you say that they could take
Yeah, I would
advantage of?
say definitely crash the edges. Your defensive ends, make sure that that zone read doesn't get outside because the Texas offensive line has proven so far that that is not their strength, right? They do not have great vision. They do not move laterally very, very well. If Sam Houston can really crash those edges and prevent the tackles from reaching out to the second level, that then in turn prevents the offensive guards from getting to the second level and allows your linebackers to crash down and create tackles for loss or tackles at the line of scrimmage. Texas again on short yardage this season has been horrible. So there's your opportunity. If you turn Texas one-dimensional and it's with the arm of Arch Manning, previously that might have been looked at as a strength, but as we've just talked about, it certainly is not right now.
And offensively, would it be fair to say that maybe they need that Sam should probably need to develop a bit of a pass game, a short pass game, excuse me.
I would say so. And we've looked back at previous games. San Jose State really picked on the freshman Grayson Littleton in that slot cornerback position. UTEP a week ago really picked on Jalen Gilbo at one of the outside cornerback spots, and they both had success. And so if you're able to do that, pick one of those corners and just say, "Hey, we're going at you today," there will be some success for the Sam Houston State offense.
That's sounds kind of mean, but hey, whatever it takes to win games, I guess. Find that it's like what Longo said. Longo said that we find the weak players and we try to find out where they are, and he did not. He said that they did not wear a weak player shirt though this week in practice because I mean that Longhorn defense is very talented. There's NFL talent out there on that side of the ball. But it's a great opportunity for Sam Houston to just go in. I mean, not just collect a check, but also have the experience of playing in such a environment and against a program like Texas. Well, CJ, thank you for joining me for this preview podcast for Sam Houston versus Texas. Where can people find you in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. We're at ontexasfootball.com, and I'm over at Twitter or X or whatever it's called now at CJ Vogel underscore OTF.
Oh, awesome. Well, hey, just it'll be an interesting game from your point of view. You're seeing that if Texas can get to what they can be, what they're expected to be, especially after being ranked number 1 to start the season.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, just looking to see if the team can like develop something consistently a little bit on both sides of the ball, show some flashes that, hey, you're gonna be, even if the potentiality is that you're gonna start 0-4, can you at least try to make some noise in conference play to maybe get to a 5-7, and if to see if maybe they're not, get into a bowl game like that, because it's certainly possible, but it's gonna be tough, especially since we play our home games at Shell Energy Stadium in Houston, with Bowers being under construction, the press box specifically. CJ, thank you very much, man, and I'll see you there in Austin.
Absolutely. Enjoy the drive over, and thank you very much for having me, Colin.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you once again to Eric Henry and CJ Vogel for joining Sam Houston Sports Talk to talk this matchup on Saturday. It's at DKR, Austin, Texas, 7 p.m. Central Time. It's a night game. It's going to be on ESPN Plus. I think it's also going to be on SEC and SEC Network Plus, but it's kind of the same thing. Just if you have an ESPN Plus subscription, you can't make it to the game, you should be just fine. All right, it's time for the fun stuff, Luke, and this is probably the you're undefeated, by the way, when it comes to predictions. I'm winless.
I'm not proud. I'm not proud of it.
You're not. Yeah, you predicted every single loss. I will say, if I saw that Hunter was not playing against Hawaii, I would have changed my prediction and be 1-2 right now. But I'll take being 0-3 right now. I'll take it like a man. Luke, it's again Sam Houston against Texas, number 8 Texas, 3-0, obviously 2-1 rather, obviously speaking. What are your keys for Sam Houston to be, from a certain point of view, successful?
Well, I think if we're going to be successful in this game, I think we're going to have to play fantastic on special teams. That's one thing. I don't know how we can rely on our offense consistently moving the ball against this Texas defense. And I think if we're going to find ways to squeak this one out, it would be with special teams and punt returns and kick returns, and just taking advantage of those type of big time plays that those opportunities can make, Colin. I think kind of going over what we've been talking about and what CJ talked about, like, we're going to have to take advantage of this Texas offense not firing on all cylinders yet. We know the quality's there with this team, right? We know, like, obviously it's high recruits and great coaches and great players all over the field. They just haven't put it together. I think if you can get ahead of Texas early, maybe, you could really get into Manning's head, because he just hasn't looked great this year. And if you make him really, play without the lead, if you make him play from behind, who knows what Manning can do? Because we just haven't seen Manning ever play from behind, really. So I think if we can just get on the board early, I think that'll make me feel so much better, kind of going into this one. But also, like, if we need Hunter Watson to make some plays, like, he's gonna have to do it on his legs, because I just don't know if these receivers are gonna be able to get open against this Texas squad.
So I will say this. I'm gonna break it down. I totally agree with the special teams part. I love you know how much I love a good special teams unit. Like, it's a really big key ingredient to success. But I'll give this defensively. I just try to see if you can carry some momentum from Hawaii and maybe probably try that same approach. I kind of like the fact that they went with that bend don't break. But here's the thing, though, Luke. Sark hinted on his press conference on Monday that they're going to implement more of a more QB run in their game plan, because in a way that he said, I don't have the exact quote, but he said that there comes a point where we're going to have to except the fact that the QB runs are going to be probably part of the game plan or something like that. Arch can use his legs. That's how he got a lot of the attention last year. Is that he used his legs really good. He can run the football, and maybe if Arch finds success offensively and personally in the run game, running the football, the confidence he broils up in that part. Hopefully, if you're a Texas fan and Arch himself, it becomes contagious and it goes into the passing game, and you just look so much better. So they're going, if Texas is going to establish a running game with not just a running backs but with Arch being a center point, they're gonna have to be disciplined. You could probably expect a lot of read options, maybe some bit of RPO. But man, Luke, I'm telling you right now, the one thing that scares me about this Texas offense is what I said before. What Sark does really good is get playmakers in open space in their ability to make plays. They have athletes everywhere. They're really good. Once they get going, they're really good once they get going. And so offensively though, I must say establish a quick passing game. They're going to have to ease the tension on the offensive line. They're going to have maybe Longo is working on possibly establishing a quick passing concept in game. Maybe you run some typical mesh, or I probably won't see a lot of a lot of verts maybe, but probably just a attack from the short to medium range of the field. I don't really see them going for a long bomb or anything in this game. So I think that's going to really play an advantage, especially on the back end of the Texas defense. But Luke, if you can get a quick pass game going and give that defensive line absolutely no time to get to the quarterback, you can probably make things interesting and hopefully drive down the field. And like you said, Luke, if Sam Houston gets on the board early, you feel a little bit better at least about the game. But hopefully, with one thing you mentioned in the first segment, they don't have too much rust, because bye week, you're still practicing, but you're not playing. It's a week that you're not playing in the middle of a season, and now you're going into a hostile environment against the Texas Longhorns. By the way, last time Sam Houston faced the Longhorns back in 2006, Cole McCoy threw a couple touchdown passes, and in that game, Luke, as well, connected to special teams, the Longhorns scored 2 punt return touchdowns in that game, where Texas won 56-3. So I heavily agree with you that special teams is going to play a big part for Sam Houston. All right, for the fun part, predictions, go.
I've gone first every time, and I guess I'll just continue to go first. Hoping we can make it a game, Colin. I think Texas is going to win. This is what I'm afraid of, Colin.
Oh, here we go.
Texas offense has not gotten going, and we're fixing to watch Texas on national TV just throw up 50 on us.
It's not national TV.
Figure it out.
It's not national TV. It's ESPN Plus. It's non-linear.
It's Texas, Colin. It's national TV. I think it's going to be 40-7.
Oh, okay. So you're having the Cats cover. You think the Cats are going to cover?
47-7, Colin.
40.
Look. I'm rooting for the Cats. No question about it. But it's just hard. What do you want me to say?
No, it's okay. Like, dude, it's really. I have Sam. I want Sam Houston to make it a game at least, like, for a while, like kind of like what UTEP did for like up until like the first half.
Yeah.
It's just that.
Oh, if you swapped Sam Houston with UTEP, and like we had that same outcome, I'd be ecstatic. Oh my gosh, I'd be so pumped. But I just think at some point Sark is just gonna tear into someone on that Texas team, and they're just gonna rip 40 or 50 on us, and we're gonna, that's what I'm afraid of.
And to add on to the fact, and I've already said this quite a bit, but it's a night game. There's going to be there's going to be at least 100,000 people at that stadium. There's going to be a lot of people there. It's a night game, so a lot of the alumni can make the trip up. A lot of the students, it's not going to be a day game where it's hot outside. It's going to be at least nice. I am most likely going to be just up in that press box. I'm not going to be on the field as much as I want to be out on the field. I'm most likely just going to be on the press box. It's going to be it's going to be a fun experience to say the least. In that case, good teams win, but great teams cover. Give me the Cats to cover the spread, whatever it is. It's now 39.5. So I'm going to say Longhorns. I'm going to give the Longhorns the victory on this, but if there's one thing I want the Cats to do is to make it hell, make them earn it. I'm going to say 42-10. I think the Cats get in the end zone. That's probably the boldest prediction right there. Is that I think the Cats get in the end zone.
I'm hoping we can too, Colin. I think I think there's going to be a turnover. I think it's going to be a Manning interception or maybe a fumble that the Cats will pounce on and then get one in there early, and everyone's going to say, "Uh-oh, look at Texas. They're not looking too hot. Sam's up." And that'll be the last time we see Sam Houston. I think we might see Sam Houston start. I think if we score, we're going to go up to 7-0. Or it's going to be at the very end of the game.
Okay. Like I said though, if Sam Houston scores first, I am taking a picture of the scoreboard in the stadium. I am framing that somewhere because no one's taking that away from me. We are the we are the only. We would at that point it'd be us and Ohio State as the only teams to lead to ever lead against Texas. And no one's going to take that away from us. No one can.
Okay. Fun scenario.
Okay. Here we go. Yeah.
What if the unthinkable happened?
Oh, what if dang, dude. Oh, man. That would be insane. That would be. You talk about the biggest. Would this like be a bigger upset than NIU versus Notre Dame in 2024?
No. Well, maybe.
Because here's the thing, considering that everyone's already kind of right, they're not even talking about. From what I've seen, no one's really talking nationally. I mean, no one's really talking about Texas's next opponent. Like, no one really cares. So they're already moving ahead. They're already looking. It feels like they're already looking ahead to SEC. And I get it. You know, Sam Houston's not a wow school. I totally understand, but I feel like it's a little bit malpractice to kind of just ignore the opponent. Like, hey, like I rather them say, hey, this is an opponent that Texas needs to beat by 4 scores. At least 4 scores or 5 or whatever.
At least.
So
I think knowing of like
5
what
scores.
that Notre Dame team accomplished, because they went all the way to the national championship.
Yeah.
I think I would say no to that. Also, because Texas has already lost this season. But if Texas like had beaten not Oklahoma State, Ohio State, if they had already beaten Ohio State and they were going this game 3-0 and it's still ranked number 1, that would definitely be the biggest upset of all time.
It would be the biggest win in Sam Houston history. That's for sure. All right, well, that will do it for us here on Sam Houston Sports Talk. For those that I'm pretty sure we have quite a bit of Longhorns that tune in on this podcast. So if any of you Longhorn fans are still here, we greatly appreciate you listening here on Sam Houston Sports Talk. And if you don't mind, you know, if you want, it takes literally a second. Hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 300 subscribers. That is our next goal. We're at 271 now. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. Links are in the description. Spotify link is there as well for those looking for an audio form. Excuse me, of the podcast. For Luke Scott, I'm Colin Neal saying so long for now. If you are making the trip to Austin, be safe. It's a bit of a drive, but if you are not going,
Do not speed. Do not speed
Oh, God.
in. Let's see. Rockdale, Thrall. Thrall is the speed trap. If you're coming from Huntsville, stay out of Thrall because they will find you and you will get a ticket.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clip that one specific part right there that you just said, and I'm just gonna post it out. I'm gonna just post that one part right there. That's really great advice, Lou. We don't want somebody getting a speeding ticket.
I have many friends getting speeding tickets in Thrall, Texas.
Anyway, guys, but for those that are not going, this like I said, it is on ESPN Plus. If you have it's easy to get a subscription. Just sign up if you don't have it already. You can also listen in on the radio call on the Bearkats Sports Network. Carlos Zimmerman and Brian Adams are on the call. Our good friends over there. But anyway, guys, eat 'em up, cats, and as always, 2 things.
Cats.